Hey, it's Chris. Not sure if you realize this, but there's two different Magic Keyboard models for different iPad users. There's the original Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro and iPad Air users, and then there's also this new Magic Keyboard Folio, which is just for the base iPad. And there's a fair bit of weirdness happening here. Like, there's a few features from the Folio version of the Magic Keyboard that are actually better than the more expensive Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro users. So today we're gonna take a look at the Magic Keyboard lineup, get a comprehensive overview, talk about the differences, talk about the weirdness from all the different angles, and we're gonna talk about the future of the Magic Keyboard lineup for productive iPad users. Speaking of productive, I'm getting very close to finishing up my productivity course geared specifically for Apple users who want to be more efficient and experience less burnout. So thousands of people have already given me their email to ping them once that thing launches. If you want to join them and be one of the first to know about it, I'll leave the sign up form down in the description. All right, let's start with the price, and things already get weird when we're talking about the price. This new Folio version of the Magic Keyboard starts at $249. That's versus $349 as a starting price tag for the big Magic Keyboard. Now, $249 is an expensive price tag for Apple's base entry-level iPad, especially when it looks like this is Apple's attempt to copy Logitech's Combo Touch, which is actually much cheaper and has more features. Although I have to say, I do definitely prefer the Apple aesthetic. You know what? I'll link all these keyboards up down in the description if you want to check them out for yourself. But check this out. Something that iPad Pro users and Air users have been missing for the longest time is a row of function keys up at the top of the Magic Keyboard. Well, the Folio fixes that. It brings a row of function keys. So you've got things like being able to adjust the brightness, you've got a dictation button, you can activate Do Not Disturb, control your media, the volume, all right there across the top of the keyboard. So here's the question. Doesn't that make the cheaper Magic Keyboard Folio more pro in this regard than the much more expensive Magic Keyboard for pro iPad users? That is kind of weird, isn't it? But the weirdness flows in both directions. So this has a backlit keyboard and this doesn't. Now you might be like, well, it is the base iPad model keyboard, right? Yeah, but look at the price. It's really expensive, and the way cheaper Logitech Combo Touch has backlighting. There's just no excuse for not having backlighting, especially if you're going to the trouble of adding in this row of function keys. It's just so weird. And look at this, I'm not even sure that you can tell here on the video, and this is a very small point, but it's worth pointing out. The trackpad here is actually slimmer. It's not as tall or high on the bigger keyboard model here for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro than on this, so you end up getting more surface area for your trackpad. A little bit, it's not like a lot, but that's even with that row of function keys taking up space on the keyboard. Like, what is going on here? And you'll notice something really very different about these designs. This has this floating design over here, and this has the kickstand. Well, the kickstand ends up taking up more space on your desk or on your Surface than this design, which is much more space saving and compact. So that is actually a consideration that a lot of people don't think about when they're thinking about what kind of keyboard they should get for their iPad. But here's something else, and this actually applies to me. Some people say they don't care, but this kickstand design is not good for using the iPad in your lap. Whereas you can just pick up this original Magic Keyboard here and take it all over the place. And I have a specific chair that I love to write in. And I got an ottoman, kick my legs up, and just get to work. And this setup works really good for that. And I couldn't use this setup at all with that sort of situation. And that's because things are just kind of floppy, and this is really solid and sturdy. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say this here. The Folio, with this Microsoft Surface-like kickstand experience, might end up doing some damage to the iPad brand as a whole because it's not unique. Contrast that with the very unique and one-of-a-kind design of the original Magic Keyboard here with this floating look that you're not gonna find anywhere else. It kind of gives off this only with Apple vibe. And you know, I feel like some of the brand cachet has been lost a little bit. Now let's talk about foldability and flexibility. What I mean by that is this original Magic Keyboard here, I can fold it like this, or I can just take the actual iPad off like this, and those are basically my options. Over here, I can actually grab this and yes, fold it up, but I can actually rip the keyboard bottom all the way off, or I can flip it around like this and fold it behind so I'm not like typing on any keys when I'm holding it, and actually they deactivate anyways. But it's always nice to just be able to use this as kind of a display without the keyboard, which normally is not even an option over here on the Magic Keyboard. I say normally because wait until you see about today's sponsor. But there are times when I want to integrate my iPad into my desk setup and I don't want an extra keyboard laying around because I've already got a Magic Keyboard and a mouse set up with a monitor and everything. It's just redundant and it takes up a bunch of space unnecessarily. So that's kind of a bummer. Also, the original Magic Keyboard does have an extra charging port in the back, which frees up your normal port for use with like a hub or a drive or something like that. So those are some of the main differences, but the weirdness gets even weirder as you're about to find out. But first, let me tell you about Moff's Snap system for iPads, which is a great way to supercharge your productivity, especially for you digital nomads out there. The Snap case is Magic Keyboard compatible. It'll make sure your Apple Pencil never gets lost again. And then there's the popular Snap tablet stand, which is so slim you'll barely notice you brought it with you. And it's got the perfect angles for streaming, drawing, or video calls. And get this, you can easily switch between using it and your Magic Keyboard, which is really cool. Finally, there's the Snap Float Folio, which is making big waves because it can float your iPad up to 3.6 inches off of the desk. So it's way more ergonomic, and what's not to like about a shape-shifting folio design. So you're definitely gonna wanna check into the full Snap system for iPad, including the wall stand and Snap Pad as well, all of which are accessible using the link down in the description. Okay, so there's plenty of weirdness that we still need to discuss. Starting with this conundrum. If I asked you which one of these keyboards was better, how difficult of a question would that actually be? I think more difficult than it should be. Or put differently, it might be kind of hard for people to articulate, and if it's hard to articulate, it's probably hard for a consumer when, they're thinking about a buying decision, why the more expensive Magic Keyboard is actually better than this cheaper, although not budget-friendly, Magic Keyboard Folio version. It's not like the Apple Pencil situation where you've got the original Apple Pencil and this newer Gen 2. The new Gen 2 does so much more that it's obviously in a totally different league than that more base entry-level iPad stylus, right? I mean, if I'm Apple, I don't think I would actually want to have anything about the cheaper model be better than the model that is supposed to be used for the pro people out there. Now, obviously the Folio is not entirely better, but still, I'm thinking about somebody who's like a writer and a keyboard's basically their life. Are they gonna prefer a keyboard that actually has function keys, the one without? Probably. Are they gonna prefer a keyboard that they can just rip right off, which might be better for Apple Pencil and just taking handwritten notes, I think we're in the weird situation where for some people who like a writer or people who do basic productivity, they may end up preferring the lower end solution over the higher end because it feels higher end even though it's lower end. You know what I mean? So I think we're at this weird spot where it's like, well, what is Apple gonna do in the future with this Magic Keyboard? How are they gonna improve it so that, like the Apple Pencil that's meant to go with the Pro device here, it's obvious that when you go with the Pro lineup, you end up getting way, 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 way more in terms of features and not missing out on stuff that even the base level has? Well, my guess is that in the next version of the Magic Keyboard for the Air and Pro, we're probably likely to see a function row added. That's my guess. I could be wrong though, because there could be something about this floating design where Apple's just like, no, we're not gonna do that. Other than that, I don't really see a lot that can change or that will change, because this floating design here, that's signature. We talked about that already. From a technical standpoint, it's just fancier and it just looks cooler, right? So I think that is what Apple right now is considering pro about this keyboard in and of itself, mostly just the design. But think about this, maybe part of the problem is sprawl in terms of the iPad lineup. I know that Apple's trying to present a good, better, and best option, but don't forget we also have the iPad mini, right, thrown into the mix. But as you can see from this video, there are already times when the good option is better than the best, at least when it comes to the accessories, which is just weird. Now, from a workflow point of view, I think obviously you get an iPad Pro and it does have this extra port, which frees up this port over here. And if you're doing anything like actually pro, like maybe using the new DaVinci Resolve, or for instance, with an external monitor, okay? This little iPad over here is not gonna be able to handle that sort of more robust workflow, okay? So this video really is talking more about your portable setup or just an iPad setup with no external accessories kind of. So an iPad only setup. But still, I think this does illustrate pretty robustly that Apple has some thinking to do in terms of how they need to differentiate these products, and do certain products even need to exist, maybe. All right, that's it for today's kind of different video. I've got so many iPad accessories that have been shipped here that I'm waiting to get on the channel in front of your eyes, but I've been knee deep in this productivity course. It's time to just finalize it, get it done, trying to get it finished by the end of the year. So if you want to be one of the first people to know about it when it finally launches, I'm so excited for it. I do think this is going to be game-changing, not just game-changing, life-changing for basically most people that end up watching it. And I gotta tell you, I've invented my own productivity system, and I'm gonna teach you about that. It's the one that I've been using my whole life that has helped lead to much of my success, for what it's worth. So I'm excited. Get yourself signed up for notifications, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.